Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time is now 7 o'clock on November 2nd, 2020. I call to order a public hearing on Ordinance 1044 concerning amendment to the City Code, Chapter 99, which is an incentive conversion program. I will read the header of the ordinance, and then I will call on the audience at large if anybody wishes to speak. Public hearing for Ordinance 1044, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Havre de Grace adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and Sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter for the purpose of amending City Code Chapter 99 Incentive Conversion Program. At this time, is anyone here this evening in the audience that is here because they want to speak on this ordinance? Please raise your hand and be recognized. Okay. Any council members have any comments on Ordinance 1044 for a public hearing? Everybody good? Okay, without comments from citizens, without comments from the council. Time is now 7:02. I will now close the public hearing for Ordinance 1044. Okay, that moves us into the City Council meeting for November 2nd, 2020. Time is now 7:02. I'll call the roll call of the council. Council President Glenn.
Here.
Council Member Robertson.
Here.
Councilmember Zinner.
Here.
Councilmember Boyer.
Here.
Councilmember Ringsager.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Excellent. All council members are present and accounted for. Can you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance opening prayer? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I could ask everybody to please kindly remain standing for a few more moments as I call forward Pastor Lynn Humphreys of Hopewell United Methodist Church. Pastor, thank you so much for being here with us this evening.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for the work that you do. Would you please bow your heads and pray with me? Gracious and almighty God, we come together tonight to do the work of this city, to care for your people, to lift us all up for better living in your name. Bless the minds and hearts of the men and women of this council, and give them wisdom to make good decisions, to govern with integrity, justice, and mercy, especially when the decisions and the governing are hard. Let them know that you surround them with strength and courage to effectively do the work you have called them to do. In these days and nights of strife and stress, of sickness, dying, unrest, and division, on the eve of this contentious election, we ask for your healing hand upon this world, God. Heal our world, our nation, our state, our city, of the racial, economic, and political discord that is shaking us at our roots. Heal us so that the shining light of your people will blaze with brilliance and illuminate the unity with which you created us. God, you know we're in a mighty contest with this virus. Help us to put down the spear of controversy and lift up the blanket of kindness as we search for a treatment and a way forward. Give comfort to those who are struggling with the virus and peace to those who have lost a beloved family member because of it. Grant us the knowledge of you by our sides in this existential battle so that we can face this marathon fight and triumph. Heal, restore, and open us to one another, so that we may find unity with each other because of our unity with you. Yes, we come to you by many paths and call you many different names, but tonight and always I pray to you in the mighty name of Jesus the Christ.
Amen. Pastor, thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you. Okay, we're going to item 5, approval of the minutes, City Council meeting minutes, October 19th, 2020. Council, do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Zinner, seconded by Councilman Robertson. Questions or comments on the council minutes of October 19th? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. City Council meeting minutes of October 19, 2020 carry 6-0 in the affirmative. We go to item 6, comments from citizens on agenda items. This is the part of this evening's meeting. If you wish to speak on something that is on the agenda itself, this is the time to be recognized and speak to address the council. If you're here this evening because you have other city business you want to talk about that's not on the agenda, we do have a place at the end of the council meeting to speak. So does anyone in the audience here wish to speak on an agenda item? Sir. Good evening, welcome to this Havre City Council meeting. May you please have your name and address for the record, please.
Christopher Mudd with Venable LLP. Business address is 210 West Pennsylvania Avenue.
Welcome.
Thank you. In Towson. Thank you very much, council members and Mr. Mayor. This is my third or fourth time appearing before you. I'm here tonight on agenda item 13, old business, which is the modified single concept plan that the council is to be considering tonight, related to the Green and Ionello and Patron properties. I represent Mr. Ionello, and I have throughout this process. It's been a long process, a lot of twists and turns, but I think one thing that's maintained constant throughout, at least as far as Mr. Ionello is concerned, is that we have continued to express concerns about proximity of Mr. Ionello's property in the middle of all of the other properties, and his ability and assurance from this council that when the single concept plan proceeds and the parties proceed through to full site plan process, that he has the ability to access his site. And there's been language proposed back and forth. Ms. Ishak and I have had some conversations today, and we're trying to put Mr. Ionello in the best possible position to ensure that if he were to go, after this process tonight and after the single concept plan is approved, if he were to go out and develop on his own, that he would be able to do so without difficulty with regard to access, both vehicular access as well as utilities. I understand that there were, as recently as maybe 2 o'clock this afternoon, there was another version of this plan that was circulated with some comments. And I'm not quite sure exactly what the council intends to do tonight, but I just want to be on record to say that we still would like very much to maintain what we think we had negotiated up through this summer, which was Mr. Ionello's ability to have access across an existing easement that he has, whether it be a private road or a public road within that easement, as well as the potential to access in other directions if he were to go forward and build those roads at his own cost. And there also was language in the staff report that was approved in August 3rd that related to utility easements and the obligation of Mr. Green to convey an easement to Mr. Ionello within 90 days of the approval of the single concept plan for purposes of providing temporary access to utilities. And we still want to ensure that that right exists, again, in the event that Mr. Sample doesn't proceed quickly or that Mr. Green doesn't proceed with his development, that Mr. Ionello would have the ability to do so without any difficulty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience wish to address the council? Sir. Good evening, welcome to the City Council meeting, sir. May we please have your name and address for the record?
Yes, Honorable Mayor. My name is Peter Ionello, 2000 Level Road, Havre de Grace, Maryland.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to thank this council and this esteemed body for its invaluable time that it's invested in this process. I'd also like to thank Mr. Sample and Mr. Green, Ms. Ishak, Mr. Mudd. So I also have represented and speak on behalf of the Patron Estate. The Patron Estate could not make it today, and today in written correspondence, we also identified that was on behalf of the Patron Estate. And I also would like to give a special consideration to Councilmember Ringsacker. I think his, when I look at the real estate assets that the community has, that's one thing. But when I see the people and the dedication of the public servants that are here, it is equally an astounding asset that this community enjoys. And I just wanted to express profound appreciation for his amazing intellect and discipline and fairness and toughness in the process, truly. And as it relates to what Mr. Mudd said, the last comment I have just is that Mr. Nolan sent an email earlier this month, and he said, I signed the single concept plan. And that was at the approved single concept plan. And Peter Ionello signed it on behalf of the Ionellos. That was 60 days ago. And we worked tirelessly since 2016 to actually achieve a single concept plan. And we were very appreciative of being able to do that. And Mr. Sample's stewardship was incredible. And as it relates to this community, to have a man of his caliber and ethics to be developing a property next to us, we're fortunate. And we're fortunate that Mr. Green selected him. As it relates to Mr. Green, I appreciate, on July 14th, he sold Sign Hill, and a lot of things happen. Mr. Green has a lot of responsibilities, a much bigger piece of real estate that I do. He has approximately, I think, 5,000 feet of road frontage. I don't have any. So in closing, what I say to everybody here is Ionello and the Patron Estate, we're not retrading anything. We agreed to a concept plan. We agreed to a cover letter of the concept plan that identified the terms under which we were proceeding. The City Council unanimously approved that September 3rd concept plan. Mr. Green, Mr. Nolan, and myself, we signed it. I just want to assure this council that I am profoundly, on behalf of the Patron Estate and the Ionellos, we're profoundly appreciative of the time, effort, and dedication that all of you have invested in this process. And thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Does anyone else in the audience wish to address the council on an agenda item? Yes, ma'am. Welcome to the City Council meeting. May you please have your name and address for the record?
Thank you. I'm Emily Yateman, 952 Chesapeake Drive, Havre, Grace, Maryland, 21078.
Welcome.
Thank you guys all so much for being here and for everything that you do for Havre de Grace. I am here tonight to ask for a lease of a portion of the city, which is next to my small business, Le Petit Bissou, which is downtown. It's on the agenda to be discussed tonight. I think it will be, it's under number 11, Resolutions B. I just think that it would be wonderful to use the patio space. It would be beneficial not only to my business, but it would beautify the corner of Washington and Congress and really draw and attract more people downtown. So if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to ask. And thank you again for everything.
Thank you. Council, have any questions? A moment. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Does anyone else in the audience wish to address the council on agenda items? Questions or comments, council, before we move on? Okay. We will move on to item 7, appointments. This evening we have no appointments. Item 8, recognitions. This evening, we have no recognitions. Item 9, proclamations. We have no proclamations this evening. That takes us to presentations. We have 2 presentations, both very significant. One is a history lesson, the other one's an audit. So we'll start with the history lesson first. So I'd like to call forward our very own Diane Clare to talk about Major General Marquis de Lafayette historical marker that's about to be placed in City Havre de Grace and the background on it. Welcome, Ms. Clare.
Great. Thank you very much for having me. Good evening, and thank you for letting me present tonight to explain the Lafayette Marker and the dedication of it this Friday, November 6th. If you don't mind forwarding. We are the recipients of a gift of this marker from the Lafayette Trail Incorporated and the William G. Pomeroy Foundation to be placed at Legion Square behind his statue on Union Avenue. It is the 10th marker of this series marking the trail and the first in the state of Maryland. Why are we getting this marker? General Lafayette visited Havre de Grace. I'll read this for everybody because it's so small. Visited Havre de Grace on his farewell tour of the United States in 1824 and 1825. He made a brief stop here on July 29, 1825, while traveling from Lancaster, Pennsylvania to Baltimore, Maryland. He was the guest of the nation for 13 months as the last surviving general of the Revolutionary War, where he visited all 24 states at that time. He laid the cornerstone for the Bunker Hill Monument on the 50th anniversary of the battle. He made what amounted to a pit stop in Havre de Grace before traveling to Washington, D.C. He then went home to France on September 7th, 1825, on the USS Brandywine. Named for the battle he was injured in just a little over a month after he joined the Continental Army. Here's a portrait of him at the time in 1825. And here's a depiction of him laying the cornerstone for the Bunker Hill Monument. This is a multi-state effort to mark the path of Lafayette when he visited. This shows some markers already installed in Boston and Vermont. What is the Lafayette Trail? The Lafayette Trail is a nonprofit. The Lafayette Trail Incorporated is a nonprofit organization with a mission to increase mutual understanding between the peoples of France and the United States, to raise awareness about Lafayette's critical contribution to the founding of the United States, and to document, map, and mark Lafayette's footsteps in the United States during his 1824 and 1825 farewell tour. The Lafayette Trail has an educational website and interactive online map of the places Lafayette visited. He had a personal secretary that documented all the locations and activities of this triumphal rockstar tour 50 years after the Revolution. This trail began on March 2017 by Mr. Julian Eicher through the French Consul of Boston. And if you go on, this shows the interactive map and the trail system over 24 states. And here you can see the Mid-Atlantic and Maryland region with the trail connections. The green dashed line is from the year 1824 and the blue is from 1825. And it's a very handy interactive map. You click on the dots and they open up, and to all of the sites that Lafayette visited, there's a little write-up that reflects where he visited and where he stayed. The city's connection to Lafayette. We have a really special connection to Lafayette in that he is credited with the naming of Havre de Grace. Prior to the name Havre de Grace, we were known as the Susquehanna Lower Ferry. It was a nondescript name for the village settlement that was here, made important only by the mile-wide river crossing. This was part of the King's Highway from Charleston, South Carolina to Boston, Massachusetts. According to J. Alexis Shriver, in a 1931 account, Lafayette and Harford County, 1781, Lafayette came through here, traveling with 11 others to offer their service to the American cause. From this account, they landed north of Charleston, near Georgetown, South Carolina, and traveled to Philadelphia, largely overland. Lafayette was only 19 at this time. This map shows the coastal terrain and the waterways relative to the Colonial Road. It was not easy traveling overland at this time because of the many waterways, marshy areas, and rutted roads. They lost their carriages through damage and traveled by horseback and foot. And you can see the road and how it relates to all the riverine areas and creeks. And here's a picture of what the Susquehanna River looked like at that time. This is by Benjamin Latrobe, And this is a view of the Susquehanna to Garrett Island. For context, here is the overland map an overview map from Rochambeau showing Boston and Yorktown along the eastern seaboard. And here is an inset of that map from Rochambeau of the upper Chesapeake Bay, showing the lower ferry and routes that were taken through Havre County to Yorktown in 1781. This is more context. This is a drawing of French troops of lower ferry route. Lafayette and his 11 companions would have found a settlement at the crossing. We know very little about what it looked like at that time, except for knowing that there was a ferry and ordinaries to serve travelers. They would have stayed overnight here before passing on to Philadelphia. This is when he or they as a group in conversation may have made the comparison to La Havre de Grace in France. For context, here is an early plan of La Havre de Grace, France, founded in 1517. This is from an article that was placed in the Aegis by Professor William Allen, who was a citizen here in town. And here are also maps of La Havre, and you can see the landforms and the relationship to the river. It's very similar to our situation with the Susquehanna. You can see that the scale and the conditions are very comparable, and why they would have compared it to a place familiar to them. By 1782, and before the end of the American Revolution, we had a platted town called Havre de Grace. This is shown on the 1794 map there on the corner on the far side, with the name clearly shown. And there are many places named for Lafayette, but we are the only one that I know of that is attributed to him. Why does this matter? We are only 5 years away from the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the founding of our nation. This project is part of honoring the revolutionary history as well as honoring the French-American alliance that won the war. And this shows Washington and Lafayette at Valley Forge. In addition, there is a National Park Service effort to develop the Washington-Rochambeau Revolutionary Route, which is going on now as a National Historic Trail in advance of the 250th anniversary. That also comes through this area. Lafayette's story is a great story. If you have time to spend on it, here are a couple of thoughts to close with. And I'm not going to give a history lesson on Lafayette, but it is remarkable that we gained our independence. Our alliance, our support from France, won the American Revolution. This is largely secured through Lafayette's own commitment and persistence. He went home to France, engaged in and was imprisoned during the French Revolution. He embodied the ideals of the Enlightenment, and he was the first international proponent for human rights, including the abolition of slavery. He, in consultation with Thomas Jefferson, crafted the Declaration of Rights of Man and of the Citizen, which inspired the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I want to thank Julian Eicher, the Lafayette Trail Organization, and the William G. Pomeroy Foundation for this gift and for reminding us of our history and our hard-fought independence that was supported by a crucial ally. We benefit greatly from understanding our history, the sacrifices and the ideals of this country is founded on, and the help we received when we needed it. Thank you for your time this evening, and if you're interested, we are going to be having a dedication of the trail marker this Friday at 3:30 at David Craig Park, and then moving over to the marker. And if anybody's interested, I have the programs up here. I'm happy to pass them out, or you can get them afterwards. If there's any questions. It's really great that we have this gift. We caught it. It was accidental. It just happened to us, and it's really great, so.
That's excellent. First of all, Diane, thank you so much for the very detailed slideshow presentation. Very informative, and I'll never forget when you called me into your office, about a month ago, and you showed me the plaque. I mean, it's huge and it's magnificent, and we're like, I wonder if like the lieutenant governor would come up, and he is. So I mean, it's kind of cool. So lieutenant governor's coming up Friday. The French consulate's coming up. This is a big deal here in Havre de Grace, and I want to thank you for all the efforts you've done to bring this here.
I just happen to be available to the idea, and so we're a lot of people here. So, and thank you for the support.
Some of the best things happen that way.
Oh, yeah.
So here we are, and we're about to dedicate it, and so I'm glad you came here this evening, and for the citizens watching at home, they can, if they can't actually come down and see it dedicated, at least they can drive by and see it or walk up and look at it, and they'll understand why it's there
Right.
and what it's commemorating. Council, any questions for Ms. Claire?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Very good. Well done. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. And it can actually be put online if anybody. The maps are great. It's just a really fun find to see all of it in layers. So, but absolutely, anytime. Thank you.
Yes, now it
Thank
makes
you.
sense seeing them clean the
Absolutely.
statue day. Rico was cleaning with a torch. Rebronzing, I guess.
Okay, item B on this evening's agenda is the city's financial audit for the fiscal year 2020. I'd like to call forward Mr. Michael Sampson, Nate Schwartz, and Aaron Bell, CPAs for Zelenkowski Axelrod LLC. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here again. I wanted to start by giving Mike Sampson the microphone first. He'll go over basically the overview and all the required communications that we're required to communicate to council and the mayor. So,
Thank you. Thanks for having us here tonight. As far as the results of the fiscal year 2020 audit, we performed the audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. We issued an unmodified or clean opinion on the city's financial statements. It's the highest form of assurance that we can provide. We also expressed an unmodified opinion on internal control over compliance, or internal control over financial reporting, and compliance and other matters. As far as this year with new standards, the city did adopt GASB 95, which is the postponement of effective dates of certain authoritative guidance. This is basically GASB's way to provide relief to state and local governments due to the pandemic. You didn't have to adopt any new standards this year, so the statements are relatively comparable to the prior year. As far as some other required communications, we had no disagreements with management while performing the audit. We had no difficulties in performing the audit. There were no material journal entries to be posted. We obtained the required written representations from management prior to issuing the audit, and as far as we know, there was no management consultations with outside accountants. With that, I'll turn it over to Nate to give some brief financial highlights for fiscal year 2020.
and I forgot to mention this earlier, but you guys have a great finance department here, which really made this a lot easier in a difficult time of doing audits. The information was pulled for us. They got us the information timely. Everything was in good shape when we got here, which obviously during this time period is difficult if you run into issues, but they did a great job again. They always do for us. And obviously having them is a great benefit for you guys and what could be trying times going ahead. With that being said, I'm going to keep this real brief this year. Like Mike said, you did not adopt any new GASB, so the statements are comparative year over year. The first thing I would want to point out, and you can flip with me or not flip with me, but on page 13, it's the balance sheet for your governmental funds. So this is the big guy, obviously, of the city, the general funds on here. This is the snapshot of what it looked like as of June 30th, 2020. The assets, the liabilities, with the difference between those being reported as fund balance. The general fund balance as of June 30th, 2020 was $5,750,637. That includes the emergency reserve, which was maintained at $1,377,730. So that's a healthy fund balance going into the next year. The next area I'd like to point out is on page 15, the statements of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. As opposed to the snapshot of assets and liabilities, this gives the detail of the revenues and expenses from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. The main thing I wanted to point out there was the general fund had an increase in fund balance of $770,082, which again is all good indicators right now, particularly not knowing what the revenue streams are going to look like going forward. That being said, we did not notice a significant decrease in any of your real estate taxes or any other taxes. However, as with most states, there is a lag there, so whether that affects you guys going forward or not, I'll go over it a little bit later, but we did have to add a new footnote this year regarding the pandemic. The next area I'd like to go over is, it's note 9. It's on pages 34 through 38. I don't want to go in detail here, but this is basically your long-term debt footnote. I always like to point this out to council. This gives details of the long-term obligations of the city, and it also, if you flip through there on page 37 and 38, it gives the debt service requirements in a 5 years and then every 5-year increment thereafter. So a good thing to look at anytime you're looking at budgets or doing any projects going forward is kind of, what the debt payments are going forward in future years. On page 42, and you guys have 2 pension plans here and then an OPEB plan. I just wanted to look at one of the pension plans. Obviously, I go over it every year, but these are based on actuarial assumptions and the current value of liabilities, as well as projecting out 30 years into the future what the liabilities will be. One of the main things I wanted to point out is they use a discount rate when they're doing this actuarial calculation. That discount rate is currently at 8%, so that's what they project the investments to earn. If that discount rate would go up, the liability is currently $1.3 million, the net pension liability. If that discount rate would go up and you would earn 9%, that liability right now would go down to $556,000. If it would decrease 1% and you would earn 7%, that liability would go up to $2.2 million. Just to give you an indication of how sensitive that liability is to the projected rate of return on assets. The next thing I'd like to point out is note 18 on page 54. This is the new note that I talked about earlier. It's a brief note. It came from the AICPA, and it's been in every single governmental audit report that we're issuing right now. It's basically a subsequent event. Oh, go ahead.
54?
Should be page 54. Yep.
Oh, I see it now, okay.
Yeah, so there's 2 parts to that. One, you guys, obviously the debt issuance goes in there because it was subsequent to year end. But this basically addresses the COVID-19 pandemic. And from an audit perspective, the AICPA is suggesting that we put this in there. It basically lets everyone know that there's volatility out there right now, particularly with governmental revenue sources. From the state level, your funding there, all the way down to anything you would collect locally. Hopefully, it doesn't have a big impact on you, but unfortunately, it's likely to have a significant impact, particularly in earned income taxes and taxes of that nature, potentially even in collection of sewer water rates. So it's just something big to look at. I know I talked to George, and you guys were looking at that when you did the budget. So again, a good finance team, you should be able to get through that. But the last thing I wanted to add is, it's for a historical perspective, but on pages 55 through 61, it's called required supplementary information. Basically, GASB requires us to put this in the financial statements. It's going to give you some historical context. If you ever wanted to look at the pension plan, the OPEB plan, to see, how's their liability been trending, how have the assets been trending, as well as, are we making our required contributions? What are they in relation to the payroll that we have? That's all good stuff to look at. If you're looking at, future impacts and maybe funding that more, funding it less, what the implications are there. With that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Good. Councilman Robertson.
Thank you, gentlemen, for a very brief overview, but I know that it's always quality work year after year. And also, I just want to know how much George paid you to say that he's such a great financial team.
Payment enough is if the information's accurate and we're not spending, weeks trying to decipher what's going on. So now,
Yeah, roger that. We are lucky, and, yeah, thank you again.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. This government was created by the citizens of Havre de Grace to do a job, and the balance is to figure out exactly what that job is every year, what needs to be done, and how much money it takes to do it. And responsibility comes in both of them. The responsibility of doing the right job for the citizens and using just the enough right amount of money to get the job done, no more, hopefully less. And so I want to thank my finance department. I want to thank Mr. Dehorty, who's my finance director, and all the employees back there that deal with water billing, tax billing, and all the other receivables. And you heard it from the gentleman this evening representing the city's accounting firm. You know, I just want the citizens to know that we're doing the best job that we possibly can to make sure we account for every tax dollar expended on your behalf to make Havre de Grace such a great place to live and raise your family. So again, a lot of thanks goes to my finance department. So I really hats off to them. Year after year after year, they do a great job. Thank you. Okay, you guys ready for laws and resolutions? All right, good.
Welcome to the Jim Ring Soccer Show.
Why they pay us the big bucks.
All right, let me get ready here. Get myself situated. All right, here we go. Okay. Item 11 on this evening's agenda, resolutions. This evening we have two resolutions and are both lease agreements. First item, item A, I will refer to Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, Council, citizens, make a motion to introduce calendar resolution concerning lease agreement at 319 Bourbon Street.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsager and seconded by Councilmember Robertson. This is a motion to introduce a resolution. Questions and comments on the introduction? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce a resolution concerning a lease agreement for 319 Bourbon Street carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Council, I'm going to read the header of this resolution. I will be assigning this a number. This is going to be Resolution 2020-18. A resolution by the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, pursuant to Sections 76, 33, and 34 of the City Charter and the Local Government Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to authorize the mayor to enter into a lease for a portion of the city right-of-way along 319 Bourbon Street. Council, to have a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ringsager, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. Questions or comments before the roll call vote?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this property at 319 Bourbon Street, they'd like to expand their porch. It seems to be pretty aesthetic. You should have the documents included with your packet, showing exactly what they want to do. That does not visibly impact the intersection. It's aesthetic and in accordance with the other houses in the area. And I do ask for a moment if I could have the city attorney comment on one portion of the lease agreement that is inconsistent with prior lease agreements. Mr. Shack?
Okay, so, can you hear me? Okay, so these lease agreements have been inconsistently applied throughout the years, and we're trying to get it to a process where they're more consistently applied. Most recently, we have approved leases with respect to residential properties, particularly along Bourbon Street and other streets in the city where there are already existing encroachments on the city right-of-way, so that there's a uniformity of appearance. This apparently is one of those properties, And they're basically replacing an existing porch and extending it across the full front of the house. So there was, to keep this consistent with the other types of leases we've done in the scenario, there is a recommendation that the rental fee be reduced to just the administrative fee at this point in time, and to shorten the lease term to 5 years, because we're in the process of trying to get all the leases on board into this new process. So we want to have a shortened lease term in order to provide some more uniformity going forward. And that will give us a shortened lease time in order to accomplish that with this and other leases that are coming up.
So, Mr. Mayor, I do make a motion that we waive the lease fee and still incorporate the administrative fees, and we change the length of the lease to 5 years in accordance with recommendations from the city attorney.
All right, say it one more time, Councilmember Ring-Sacker.
Okay, we would like to waive the administrative fees, which would be, I'm sorry, the lease fees, which would be under item 2, be line 95 through 99. There was a math error in there anyway, so we'd like to strike that.
Okay.
And then, see here where it says the time. Mr. Ishak, do you recall what line was the time for that?
145, on page 5.
The term?
Page 5. Okay, 145. Okay, the term.
Did you
5
get-
years?
Where it currently reads, this agreement shall remain in force for a period of 10 years and shall expire December 31st, 2030, that is. I'd like to change that to read, this agreement shall remain in force for a period of 5, with 5 written out and then the number 5 in parentheses, and shall expire December 31st, 2025.
Okay, 5 years. Council, you have that?
One question.
Hmm?
When you're striking 95 through 99, and you also then, the alphabetical C corresponding to same.
Yes, I guess I assumed that prematurely.
Well-
If we could add that.
All right, well,
Can I
let's,
make a recommendation? It might just be easier to say waived pursuant to council vote or something like that, and leave that intact, showing that it was actually waived. Yep.
all right. So your changes, Councilmember Ring-Sacker, is that in form of a motion?
That is in form of a motion, sir.
Okay. I have a second for Councilmember Ring-Sacker's. Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Martin. Okay, any comments or further questions on Councilmember Ring-Sacker's amendment? Councilmember Boyer?
Is the homeowner aware of these changes?
No, they'll be happy to find out, I'm sure.
They'd be happy to find out that it's reduced, or they'd be happy to find out that they have to do this again in 5 years?
Well, I would be happy to find out that I wouldn't have to pay a yearly lease for those 5 years, and we'll inform them of the changes to a 5-year renewal after that period. And then I'm assuming it would stick to a regular renewal schedule after that.
What we're trying to do is we have a number of these leases throughout the city, and they've not been consistently applied. So we're treating this one very similar to the one we've done not too long ago on the same street. It may have been even the next door property.
Yeah, I think it's.
And so what we're trying to do is then bring them all into more line so that each one comes up to renewal. They will be part of the same standard. We just have not, in going through our leases, we've noticed they've been, depending on what administration was in office, it changed, and so we're just trying to get a handle on that. So by doing it this way, we're treating it consistent with one we've done just like it recently on the residential side, not the commercial side, but the residential side, and then we're going to put in place a more consistent policy to accommodate the differences between lease, license, commercial, residential, which has kind of been all over the map the past 15, 20 years.
The
That makes
original
sense.
ordinance passed in, I believe, in 2007, and it's been very inconsistently applied. So we're trying to bring it consistent with the other properties that haven't been charged the fee. So when they go to renew, when every property we've given the lease to, when they go to renew, they'll be under the new fee structure, which will be coming at a later date.
Okay. So as soon as this passes, then the homeowner will be told, and
Yeah, we'll notify them immediately.
so let's say that they don't agree with this, that they wanted it for the 10 years. What recourse do they have?
If they wanted it for 10 years, it's up to the council. They can try to renegotiate
Okay.
that. And the mayor's office. I mean, the problem is, we can never do a lease more than 50 years anyway. That would be the maximum. And by having a shorter term, it allows the city to have, and I would recommend shorter terms for any leases coming up in the near future, because then it will allow the city to, as they each come up, to then make them conforming with the policy that we're currently working on, making it more consistent. So I think that, for example, one of the things that was in one of the prior resolutions was leases shall, for as much as possible, either terminate or become renewable by vote of council on December 31st of each year. Well, I can tell you, our leases don't become renewable on December 31st, but it would be really, it would make it much easier for the city if we knew every fall we need to review our leases to see what's coming up and how to account for them in the budget. So this will help with that process by having shorter-term leases at this point in time, with the idea that they will probably be renewed, but we're going to renew them with a new policy that's consistent across the board. So we always treated our residential and our commercial properties differently in the city for various reasons, but I think that this will give the citizens a better expectation of what to expect. So that's the reason for the shorter lease. I mean, if they want to argue for a longer one, they can, but you know.
My only concern is that,
yeah.
that the resident wasn't
Yeah.
told
I
this
just
when they
don't-
applied.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, we've done them at different, we've had one commercial one that comes up every 2 or 3 years. So we have some that are shorter. We have a long one with the hospital and Lodge Lane, that's a long one. Decoy Museum, that's a long one. So some of them tend to be longer anyway. But in order for us to get in place, anything that's coming up for renewal in the near future, we want to get them all on that like annual review schedule, if you will. And then we can enter the longer ones as needed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Councilman, do a roll call vote on Resolution 2020-18.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're still voting on the amendment.
Oh, you're right. You know, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're under the amendment, Councilman Ringsacker. Sorry about that. Thanks. Councilmember Ringsacker's amendment, motion by Councilmember Ringsacker, seconded by Councilmember Martin. Any other questions or comments on that amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Councilmember Ringsacker's amendment carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Now we're back to Resolution 2020-18. Any further questions or comments before the roll call vote? Okay. Councilmember Ringsacker.
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Council President Glenn.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, Council Resolution 2020-18, a lease agreement concerning 319 Bourbon Street, is adopted and approved. Thank you. We're going to go to item B. Councilmember Ringsacker.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I make a motion to introduce calendar resolution concerning lease agreement at 100 North Washington Street.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsacker, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. This is a resolution concerning lease agreement at 100 North Washington Street. This is a motion to introduce a resolution. Any questions or comments on the introduction? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce resolution carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Council, this will be Resolution 2020-19. It's a resolution by the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, pursuant to the Section 76, 33, and 34 of the City Charter and the Local Government Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, to authorize the mayor to enter into a lease for a portion of the city right-of-way along Congress Avenue adjacent to 100 North Washington Street. Council, to have a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-19.
So moved.
Second.
My motion.
My bad.
Councilmember Ringsacker, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. Questions or comments before the roll call vote? Councilmember Ringsacker,
Mr. Mayor,
would you like to say something?
I would like to say something, sir.
All right. I have a motion.
As Ms. Yeatman previously explained, and I do apologize, I saw you sitting out there, but you're wearing the mask, I didn't even recognize you.
Yeah, same.
So hi. This is for the corner of Congress and Washington, that little plaza there. She wants to put out some chairs and tables, and I think it was something that'd be really nice to have down there. I think that it will add the aesthetic quality of that corner and make us more inviting for tourism, and it's something that I wholeheartedly support for her business, and I do ask that we pass it.
Thank you, Councilmember Ringsacker. Appreciate it. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I too would like to say that we reviewed this in Planning Committee, this lease agreement as well as the one that we just voted on. And like the other one, I don't see this as being a burden on the city right-of-way. It's kind of out of the way of where people walk. There's no traffic there or anything, and actually I think it's going to be quite lovely. My question would be, should we also do the same amendment for this one, for this lease agreement?
Actually, no, we can't, because it's a commercial lease and not a residential lease.
So it's got to be built the same way that it is now. It's not
Yes.
going to change.
This one is correct, and it's been correctly applied consistently across the other commercial leases in the city.
Cool, thank you.
If, Ms. Check.
Mrs. Jack?
If I could just add, for the same reason, though, that the other one was reduced to 5 years, I would recommend for the same reason for this one to be reduced for 5 years, but that's up to council. But for consistency, so that when we go through the leases and start applying a consistent policy, although I will say, with Councilmember Ringsacker said, the commercial leases have been more consistently applied with the lease rates across the city, because it's considered a commercial use of city property.
Thank you, Mrs. Jack. Any other questions or comments?
I make a motion to amend the date of execution. Give me a moment, I have to find it again. Term. Make a motion to amend item number 6, line 142. Change that from 10, with the number 10 in parentheses, to 5 written out with 5 in parentheses, and shall expire on December 31st, 2025.
Council, I have a motion by Councilman Ringsacker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Martin. This is for the amendment to make this license, or lease agreement, a 5-year agreement, correct?
5-year.
Questions or comments on the amendment? Councilmember Robertson.
So is the purpose of making it 5 years because that's consistent with other commercial leases?
It's to allow the city, because we're reviewing our leases and licenses with respect to both commercial and residential properties. As we develop that policy, then we'll, as the leases roll over, we'll be able to accommodate more consistency. And so when they get renewed, which is likely the case, we can renew them consistent with the policy, the new policy that this council or next council adopts.
Okay, well then wouldn't it also make sense to waive the fees as well, aside from the admin fee? I mean, it seems like we're doing the same thing that we just did.
We don't have a history of waiving the fees for commercial properties. For example, we have a lease at Quill de Gras that we've had for years. That one's never waived. Prior to, we had a boundary lines or sale agreement with McGregor's, but prior to that, there was always a lease agreement with McGregor's. I believe we always have a lease agreement with Office Center for there's some parking area there. So whenever we're dealing with a commercial property, it's been very consistent that we have an annual lease payment or a lease payment. We don't tend to waive those fees. I haven't found any instance of it.
Okay, and the precedence for all of those other leases is 5 years?
No, the reason for the 5 years is because that gives us
Just to
time to
review.
develop a policy.
Okay.
And then as they expire, we can roll into the new leases, because a lot of times they're renewed. Like, for example, I think the Quill de Gras one is renewed every 2 to 3 years. So then, as they get renewed, we'll be able to roll them online with the new policy to get them all consistent, because they're not consistent right now. They're all over the place. And part of it is because some of them were entered 20 years ago, some of them were entered 2 years ago. There's been different resolutions passed. And so we've got our handle on a lot of them now, but now we're to the point where as they renew, there's no consistent time when they expire or when they renew, or what the lease fees are pretty consistent on the commercial side. They're all over the place on the residential side. So We really need to get a handle on that. And by having them shorter term, it allows us to correct that in a shorter time span, as opposed to waiting for the longer-term leases to expire, because in 10 years, it'll be a different city council sitting here. And so it pushes it so far in the future, it's hard to get a handle on it. And so Steve Gamatori has been working with me on this for the past couple of years, and it's been quite a challenge, but we're getting there.
All right. Mr. Mayor, if I still have the floor?
Hold on one second. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say, Councilman Robertson?
No, so just to sum it up for y'all watching at home, it's an abbreviated time frame so that we can ensure that the leases are correctly applied going forward, and that's both for residential and for commercial. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Ringsire.
Thank you. In response to your question about that, I'd like to also add that it's under the doctrine of equal protection, where we haven't been charging lease agreements for lease agreements for residential. We have been consistently for commercial. So let's say if we didn't charge for this, Creole de Gras would have an argument against them being charged because we're not consistently applying our own policy. So because we haven't been charging for the porches and the other residential issues, we can't in good conscience charge for the new lease agreement until we come up with the new policy and stick with that policy for consistency's sake from here on.
No, thank you very much for that explanation.
Thank you. I hope that helps at home.
Any other questions or comments before we vote on the amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Councilmember Ringsacker's amendment to make the lease at 100 North Washington Street 5 years carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Back to Resolution 2020-19. Any more further questions and comments on this? Okay. Council, roll call vote. Councilmember Robertson.
Aye.
Councilmember Ringsacker.
Yes.
Council President Glenn.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, Council Resolution 2020-19, a lease concerning 100 North Washington Street, is approved and adopted by council. Thank you very much, council. Item A, or I'm sorry, item 12 on the agenda, we're going to go to ordinances, also known as laws. Got a couple laws here tonight.
Couple laws.
Ordinances, okay. Item A, ordinance 1043 concerning amendment to Chapter 205, zoning to add personal care boarding home, second reading. The most popular person on the dais this evening, Councilmember Ringsacker.
It's not just this evening. You heard Mr. Iannello say earlier how wonderful that was. Mr. Mayor and Council, make a motion to introduce ordinance 1043 concerning amendment to Chapter 205 zoning to add personal care boarding home for second reading and adoption.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilman Ringsacker, seconded by Councilmember Zinner. This is a motion to introduce on second reading ordinance 1043. Questions or comments on the introduction of the second reading? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to motion to introduce for second reading ordinance 1043 carries 6-0 in the affirmative. This is ordinance 1043 concerning amendment to Chapter 205 zoning to add personal care boarding home, second reading. An ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Havre de Grace adopted pursuant to the authority of the Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the annotated code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter for the purpose of amending City Code Chapter 205, zoning to add, quote, personal care boarding home, unquote, as a conditional use in the R1 and R2 districts. Council, I have a motion to adopt Ordinance 1043 on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Councilman Ringsager, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. Questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Ringsager.
Earlier this afternoon, I received a letter from a concerned citizen reiterating her previous objection to this ordinance. I just want to go over a few points on that. Specifically, this is a zoning change. This has nothing to do with enforcement or anything else with the code. This just allows this as a conditional use within the R1 and R2 district. By conditional use, that means that people present the plan to us, and it has to go before our planning director, and then it has to go to our planning commission, and then it goes to our Board of Appeals. We're giving it as a conditional use, meaning we can set conditions for the personal care boarding homes. One of the concerns was parking in certain areas of the city where there might not be enough parking to have a personal care boarding home. Well, let me resolve some of these fears. In the ordinance itself, we do require off-street parking for any, for the highest number of employees for the highest number shift, something like that. I can't remember the exact wording, I'd have to look at it. But basically, we're requiring off-street parking, the maximum number of off-street parking spaces for the maximum number of employees that they would have. Additionally, if a person wants to put a personal care boarding home in an area of town that might have other restrictions or other issues with severe parking issues, the Board of Appeals and the Planning Commission can deny the conditional use permit because of those parking issues. We can restrict the certain areas or certain homes, certain streets based on that. So if I can just, like I said, relieve any of those fears that the citizen had previously spoken about at the last meeting, and say that as a conditional use, this gives the city some control over who puts a personal care boarding home into what streets and what areas. So I do thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councilmember Ringsager, for clarification. Any other questions or comments from the council on ordinance 1043? Okay, council, prepare for roll call vote. Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson?
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner?
Yes.
Council President Glenn? Yes. Councilmember Ringsager?
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, ordinance 1043 is approved and adopted by council by, by 6-0 roll call vote. It's adopted, 1043. Thank you very much, council. We're going to move to item B. Ordinance concerning City Code, Chapter 155, to establish new standards for the review of site plans. This is a first reading. Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to introduce ordinance concerning City Code Chapter 155 to establish new standards for the review of site plans for first reading.
Council, I have a motion by Councilman Ringsager, seconded by the council president. This is a motion to introduce on first reading, ordinance 1045. Questions or comments on the introduction? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce ordinance 1045 carries on first reading, 6-0 in the affirmative. This is an ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of Havre Grace, adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the annotated code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre Grace City Charter for the purpose of repealing and replacing City Code Chapter 155 to establish new standards for review of site plans. Council, can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1045 on first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Ringsager, seconded by the CP. Questions or comments before the roll call? Councilmember Zinner.
I just want to make a couple
Councilmember Zinner, is your microphone on?
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Here we go. I just want to make a couple comments, and I'm going to primarily look at Section B, Building Facade Massing, on page 12. And earlier in the week, I had gotten a message from Mr. Grimm explaining some of these, some of the wording and some of the kind of a light changes that he wants to make. And he talks in here about line 447, number 4, the architectural elevations and renderings. And I think this is a great step forward in terms of standardizing some of the requirements for commercial or multifamily buildings. And he's also been able to bring in the Historic Preservation Commission in terms of making sure that they have an opportunity to review some of these plans before they're executed. And I think that's an additional great step in terms of keeping the historic nature of the city in terms of either new construction or renovations and things like that. And I'm really grateful that he was able to construct the wording in such a way that hopefully this will pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zinner. Thank you for the comments. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, this is another one of those items to come out of our planning department that Mr. Grimm and his staff have worked so diligently on. Our current site, the site plan ordinance that we currently have is very onerous to the developers and to the property owners, and we, again, just want to bring this into a more consistent, on a more consistent path with how it's done in other municipalities and in the county. And also, we're incorporating in here our new adequate public facilities ordinance and our sign code. So if you review that, you'll see these items that we've previously voted on incorporated in there, so we can allow developers and other property owners to submit plans to our planning department on a consistent manner with how they're used to doing it, instead of using old antiquated methods. And it also, like I said, incorporates our new standards and requirements.
Thank you very much for clarification, Councilmember Ringsager.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions or comments? Okay. Council, prepare for roll call vote on 1045. Councilmember Robertson?
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Council President Glenn?
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsager?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative. Ordinance 1045 concerning establishing new standards for review of site plans is adopted on first reading. We will need to have a public hearing on this ordinance before we have a second reading. Council President, when would you like to have the public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I propose a public hearing of November the 16th at 7 p.m.
Okay, November 16th at 7 p.m., also known as the next council meeting, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so the public hearing on ordinance 1045 will take place at the next council meeting, November 16th at 7 p.m. Right here. Thank you very much, council. We'll go on to item number 13.
Mr. Mayor? If I could I request a short recess to confer with the city attorney due to the abundance of procedural issues with this upcoming?
Not a problem. Council, we have a request by a fellow council member for a brief recess. Any objections?
None.
Without any objections to a brief recess, this council will go into recess for 10 minutes. The time is 8:10. We'll adjourn around 8:20.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Time is now 8:24. We are reconvening the city council meeting of November 2nd, 2020. We will continue with our agenda with new business. No, I'm sorry, old business. And we have item A under old business, which is tabled presentation of modified single concept plan, also known as Annexation Resolution 277. Councilmember Ringstocker?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I make a motion to remove the tabled presentation of the modified single concept plan for reconsideration.
I have a motion by Councilmember Ringstocker, seconded by Councilmember Martin. This is a motion to untable annexation, single concept plan for annexation resolution 277. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to untable the modified single concept plan for annexation resolution 277 carries 6-0 in the affirmative. It is now untabled. Councilmember Ringstocker.
Mr. Mayor, I now make a motion to call up the motion for reconsideration of the tabled single concept plan, originally voted on August 3rd.
Okay, Councilmember Ringstocker calls on the question of reconsideration of the single concept plan from that was passed on August 23rd. Council? Hold on one second. So this is already voted on, it was already seconded at the last meeting, so Councilmember Ringstocker's calling up the question. This is, I'm gonna call a vote on whether or not to reconsider this annexate single concept plan. This is a vote to reconsider the single concept plan.
Mayor, is there allowed to be debate first on that?
All right, you want debate?
I don't know that we need a debate.
Okay, I'll open up for debate. If you want debate.
I always want to debate. Would you like me to debate?
Council, any questions?
I mean, should I explain the plan or?
Yep.
All right. So, Mr. Mayor, Council, it is our intent to hopefully, as we've previously tabled the August 3rd plan for the single concept plan, late today we received the amended plan number 4, which was not sent out to council. It's just a couple changes on the map. And all parties seem to be in agreement at this time with the changes that we want to make. So my intent is to bring this up, call up the motion for reconsideration with the hope that it be voted down because of Robert's Rules of Orders. Again, a lot of procedural issues here. That's why I asked to confer with the attorney. So I pray a nay vote on this motion from my fellow councilmen. And after that, I will introduce amendments to the August 3rd single concept plan, which would have then been affirmed with our previous vote of August 3rd. So that is my portion, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Ringstocker. Does anybody have any other comments or questions? Okay. Councilmember Robertson?
Just want to make sure I'm tracking and everybody else is tracking. So procedurally, because this was brought up at a previous meeting and then tabled, we have to deal with the tabled issue first.
Correct.
Get that off of the table, under the table, sweep it away, whatever, and then you can bring up amendments to the already existing approved single concept.
We've already untabled it. What we're doing now is voting on, because it was originally brought up for reconsideration, which had a second, but then it was tabled. Now that it's untabled,
Yes, sir.
the question is it going to be reconsidered or not? And so we're voting on reconsidering the single concept plan that was already passed.
Correct.
Right. So that's what we're under the question for right now. It's already untabled.
Okay.
Now the council has to decide, do you want to reconsider what was passed or let it go and let the August 3rd site plan prevail or in amended. Is that correct, Councilman?
That's correct, and I pray a nay vote from my fellow council persons. So procedurally, that August 3rd plan will stand, and then we'll make amendments to that are in accordance with the, all interested parties that they've agreed upon, that they can work with, and that we can get this moving forward.
Thank you, I just wanted to make sure
That's
it
fine.
was
It's-
very
it's-
clear for everybody what we're doing, that's all.
I'm not sure it's clear up here
That was a
yet.
good question,
Appreciate it.
Councilman Robertson. Any other comments before I do a roll call vote on to reconsider? Council, this is going to be a roll call vote on the motion to reconsider the single concept plan that was approved on August 3rd. Councilmember Zinner? Councilmember Martin?
No.
Councilmember Ringsager?
Nay.
Council President Glenn? Councilmember Boyer?
No.
Councilmember Robertson?
Nay.
By a roll call vote of 6 nays to 0, the motion to reconsider the single concept plan does not carry. So, Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, under the same order of business, I make a motion to amend the single concept plan of August 3rd as adopted. And I have several amendments here to read into record, if I may. Take them one at a time. So my first one, I'll have to refer to the submitted plans for today, because it's actually written on there. This map is revision number 4. Included with the council packet was revision number 3. So this is revision number 4, which shows the new boundary lines for the new owner and the changes of where the roadbed's going to go and the trail and the circle. So to add to the single concept plan of August 3rd, I make an amendment to add note 1, which reads, "The single concept plan depicts the proposed locations of the roads and utilities which are expected to be dedicated to the city in the future. Nothing set forth herein or as shown on the single concept plan or contained in annexation resolution number 277 as amended, or the staff report dated July 31st, 2020 as amended, constitutes a current dedication in fee simple or of any right-of-way for public roads or utilities, and the proposed locations may be subject to change due to engineering issues. However, it is the current intention of the parties to make such dedication in the future pursuant to the terms and conditions of future public works agreements and/or cost-sharing agreements as may be executed by the respective parties."
Is that your first amendment?
That's my first amendment, sir.
Council, I have a motion by Councilman Ringsacher to the proposed amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Martin? Questions or comments on Councilmember Ringsacher's amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Councilmember Ringsacher's amendment carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Councilmember Ringsacher.
Sir, the second amendment on the original August 3rd single concept plan and the one that's actually included in the council packet, which is the third revision, I'm going to amend note 12 to read, "The owner of the Ionella property shall retain the right to access Route 155 utilizing their existing 50-foot easement until such time as modified by an approved site plan." And that is my motion.
I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsacher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Martin. Questions or comments on Councilmember Ringsacher's second amendment? Councilmember Robertson.
I know that
Second
Councilman
amendment?
Ringsacher loves the Second Amendment. But can you just reiterate that amendment one more time and where I can find that?
Make me read it again? So, and I'll explain the changes here if you give me a moment to actually find in my packet. Right here. Hopefully I'll be able to read it. That's not the right one. It's a modified single concept plan, right here. So, see if I can even read that little one there. If you refer to your single concept plan that's in your packet, you have the 12 notes over here. Basically, because of the new owner, we're just changing around the wording where it says Green property because of Green and Johnson. And any future buyers, we thought that instead of adding Johnson, we're going to amend it to just remove that and add language that incorporates all future owners of any property there to the best benefit of Mr. Ainello and his development rights. So we're going to read, we're going to amend line number 12, strike completely, and write, the owner of the Ainello property shall retain the right to access Route 155, utilizing their existing 50-foot easement until such time as modified by an approved site plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments on the amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say nay. Councilman Ringsager's amendment carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Councilman Ringsager.
Sir, I make a motion to add a note 13 as an amendment to the August 3rd approved single concept plan. And it shall read, now follow with me because this is difficult. What this does is it delineates changes to the maps that are agreed upon by all parties, as is understood by me, incorporating the new boundary lines for the Johnson property and the movement of the circle, the road C, which was originally going to go through a wetland, and incorporating the changes to the lower Susquehanna Trail. So if you please follow along. Note 13, upon obtaining final site plan approval and after all bonding requirements of the Public Works Agreement are met, the owner or developer of the Ainello property shall be permitted to construct Road D within the existing 50-foot right-of-way easement if the State Highway Administration denies full access or restricts the intersection at Level Road, Route 155 entrance to the Ainello property to right in, right out at Road D, or if the fee owner of Road D does not agree to dedicate Road D as a public road, the owner-developer of the Ainello property may design and construct that portion of the Road C or Road E from Bully Rock Parkway to the intersection with Road D at the proposed location of the public park as shown on the single concept plan, plus the connecting portion of Road D to the Ainello property that is owned by the Green family. Any cost sharing or recoupment for costs associated with the construction of Road C or Road E will be documented in the Public Works Agreement for the development of parcels connecting Road C or Road E, or the portion of Road D between the circle and the Ainello property. Notwithstanding the above, any right to construct Road C or Road E, or the portion of Road D between the circle and the Ainello property shall be handled by private agreement among the respective owners of the properties. And that is my motion that be added, and under comments, I will explain.
Council, I have a motion by Councilman Ringsager. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Martin. Questions or comments on that brief amendment?
Mr. Mayor. Again, we have the new map, which just incorporates the new boundary lines for the new property owner, Mr. Johnson. He does not wish at this time, may change in the future, to have the road that is under the easement for Mr. Ainello to go across the portion of the road that he actually owns. Mr. Ainello has an easement for access, but does not actually own that property. And there's some contention about, construction and dedication of that road to the city. So what this wording does, as recommended by the attorneys, is gives Mr. Ainello the assurance that if he is unable to dedicate that property to the city as a public road, he'll be able to connect from his current property, which is landlocked in the center, to the incoming existing road through the green property. It does not convey any contract between the parties. What it does is it guarantees his rights to develop that, but the ownership is not in question of who owns the land or any fees or recoupment agreements. That is to be defined later through specific recoupment agreements and through the site plan. But what this does is guarantees his right to be able to do that if such instance occurs that he is unable to build the road where he currently has the easement access. Did I say that right?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Thank you, thank you. I wanted to go to law school, couldn't afford it. So that's my motion, sir.
Thank you very much, Councilman Ringsacker. Any other further question, comments on the amendment? Councilman Robertson.
And this is agreed upon with all parties. It's amenable, everyone agrees.
Sir, it is my understanding that, yes, we are in agreement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I say that the language was mine, however? So I can't say that everybody agreed to the exact wording, but after consulting with all the parties today, I feel that the language incorporates all the interests expressed to me throughout the day today.
Okay. That's my motion. Was it seconded? I apologize.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Ringsacker, second by Councilman Martin. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Councilmember Ringsacker's third amendment carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Councilmember Ringsacker.
Mr. Mayor, my next amendment is included with the August 3rd, now passed, non-changed, sorry, trying to get back in my head to follow this. The August 3rd single concept plan incorporated the staff report from the city, which is an internal document. It's dated July 31st of 2020 as amended. I would like to delete item 6K from that staff report because we replaced note 12 on the August 3rd plan. We just voted on incorporating that wording into the, onto the map, so we need to strike that from the staff report. So I make a motion to do that.
Second.
Track? Okay.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsacker. I got you, Councilmember Robertson.
Again, more procedural stuff.
Second by Councilman Robertson. Motion by Ringsacker, seconded by Robertson. Questions or comments on the fourth amendment to this single concept plan? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Councilmember Ringsacker's amendment, fourth amendment to the single concept plan carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Councilmember Ringsacker.
Okay, now this one is a little bit more difficult as you don't have the current map, but I do. And all it is to vote on the changes to the property line as accepted by the Johnson family from their recent survey, and the movement of the road as road, if I may, Road E as recommended by the city to not go across the wetlands, and the relocation of the circle in accordance with Road E, and also to change the path of the Lower Susquehanna Trail across the property. So I make a motion to accept the map as presented and agreed upon by the involved parties as submitted today in lieu of revision number 3, which was in the packet. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the outline of the map itself, not the language, but the map itself, as the new concept map for the single concept plan.
Council, I have a motion by Councilman Ringsacker. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Martin. Does any council member need to see this map, or have you already seen it?
I can pass it around, or I can hold it up.
think it's the one we
No.
have over here.
Actually, that is it, that is it. Does it say, or mine only has revision number 3. It should say revision number 4
It's
on there.
4.
Is that is revision number 4. This is revision number 3 here. That is that map, yes.
I just want to make sure council is aware of it. I mean, okay, everybody has it? Okay. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Okay, I just wanted to,
Oh, it is in there, I apologize. It's page 4 of the packet as submitted. That map is correct, am I right, Ms. Ishak?
The one on page 4, you said?
On page 4. It looks identical to the one here.
The one I'm looking at on here, Jim.
Yeah,
Yes, that is the correct one, that is like the big one here.
okay. So everybody following along at home, you go to the
Minus the notes, yeah.
Everybody following along at home, you can go to the city website, click on government, go down to council agenda, click on today's date, you go up there to documents, and scroll all the way down, I think it's like page 54. It's gonna be this map, and it'll explain specifically the changes that, the motion that I'm making this evening.
okay. Thank you. Any further questions or comments on the Fifth Amendment to this site plan? Councilmember Boyer. Microphone?
That's not.
Mine's up.
I just want to go on record saying that I think this is a very bizarre-looking trail. I understand that this is what they've agreed to, but it's a bizarre-looking trail to me.
Well, again, this is, if it's directed to me and I have the floor, Mr. Mayor, this is a concept plan. So later, this can change, as stated up here. A lot of things can change. I agree that it's not the most ideal path. What they wanted to do with the intent of the developers was to bisect the property with the trail, and the only way that they could do that, to stay in agreement with the new landowner, was to take that path along Road C, part of Road A, Road C, and then Road D over to Bully Rock Parkway. So we can still continue to have that road in there, that path in there, to later connect to the future other end of the Susquehanna Heritage Greenway Trail. So
And
it's not
it
ideal,
also
I get
connects
that.
to the park.
And it does connect to the park, yes. And that's the biggest thing that we wanted, was to make sure that it connected to the park, so people could access it and walk along. It's not just for the development, it's for the entire city. Any resident is gonna be able to go up there, and there will be parking up there. It's not ideal, but things might change consistent with any planning commission approval of site plans.
Right, I get it. That's why I wanted to go on record saying I think
fine.
it's the most bizarre-looking trail that we have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyer. Thank you, Councilmember Ringstocker. Any further questions or comments? Okay, this is for Councilmember Ringstocker's amendment, seconded by Councilmember Martin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Councilmember Ringstocker's Fifth Amendment to the Single Concept Plan is approved 6-0 in the affirmative. Councilmember Ringstocker.
Sir, I have no other amendments, and I thank everybody for this vote. I'm hoping we can move forward with it. I'm hoping that we've been able to appease all interested parties. I thank Mr. Grimm for his time and his staff. I thank Ms. Ishak specifically. She's the one who fields my phone calls at 10:30 at night. I do text ahead of time to make sure it's okay that I call, but I truly appreciate your candor and everything you've been able to help me with, and your knowledge base is really an asset to the city, and I thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ringstocker. So, the Council President.
I got one other question for the city attorney. We've done a lot of amendments tonight due to Councilmember Ringstocker's tireless dedication. On page 2 at the bottom, I think line 89, it has a date of October 7th, 2020. Does that date change based upon all the amendments we've made tonight?
No, that needs to state tonight's date, because that's the amendments are approved as of
That's what I'm
tonight.
saying. It
Yeah,
needs-
that needs to be modified, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to,
50, Jesus.
what is this, my 6th one?
6, yep.
Yeah. I make a motion to amend line 89 to read today's date of November 2nd, 2020.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ringsacker, second by Councilmember Robertson. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Councilmember Ringsacker's Sixth Amendment to the Single Concept Plan carries 6-0 in affirmative.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ringsacker.
Well done.
So, Council, the modified single concept plan for annexation resolution 277 was originally voted on for reconsideration, then tabled. It was taken off the table and voted down for reconsideration. It's been amended 6 times. Any further comments or questions?
I'm going to use this as a tablecloth.
Okay, very good. We will move on to new business. This evening, we have no new business. Item 15, Director's Reports. We are going to start with Mr. Patrick Seipold, the Director of Administration. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council, and good evening, citizens. I'd like to echo your sentiments, Mayor, and give George Dehorty and his staff a big kudos on the great audit and the findings that they had this evening. And let's kick it off here with a couple other announcements. On Wednesday, November the 11th, it's Veterans Day. The American Legion Post 47 will be conducting their annual wreath-laying ceremony at Tidings Park War Memorial to honor all those that served and or are on active duty. For more information, you can contact the Second Vice Commander, Jason Robertson, at 410-939-0234. On Saturday, November 14th, come out and join Joe Kay and Company for a North Park Trail Walk. This is a guided nature history walk free to the public, an easy walk of 1.5 miles in 90 minutes. This tour is for all ages. It's rain or shine. Sturdy footwear is recommended. The hikers will begin their journey at 10 a.m. from the Lock House. Social distancing and the wearing of a mask will be required. For more information, you can call 410-939-5780 or 4005. Also on Saturday, November 14th, visit the downtown businesses and restaurants for the Thanks for the Arts Autumn Art Walk. Visit our Havre Grace Arts and Entertainment District and meet local musical artists, painters, authors, and more. This event will begin at 2 p.m. and ends at 6. For more information, visit the Havre Grace Arts Collective website at hdgartscollective.org. And don't forget to come out and visit your farmers market at Hutchins Park on Saturday between 8:30 and noon. There are only 3 Saturdays remaining in their 2020 season. Remember that they offer a grab-and-go service. Simply call your order in ahead of time and it'll be ready for immediate pickup. Go to their website for a complete listing of their vendors at havregracefarmersmarket.com/vendor-schedule-map. And then on Wednesday, November 11th, City Hall will be closed in observance of Veterans Day. City Hall will reopen for business on Thursday, November 12th at 8 a.m. And if you missed any of these announcements this evening or require further information, please visit our websites, explorehavregrace.com, hdgoperahouse.org, and havregracemd.gov. And that will conclude my remarks for this evening.
Mr. Seipold, thank you very much for the updates. I'd like to call on Mr. Shane Grimm, our Director of Planning. I bet your nose was itching, everybody talking about you tonight.
I think I need a break at some point. But good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I don't think I want to say too much more about this single concept plan. I think enough has been said this evening. But I do thank you for making those amendments and moving forward with that plan. I'd like to thank Councilman Ringsacker for all the effort he's put into making sure those amendments got in tonight, and for Ms. Ishak for all the work that she's done. Speaking of tirelessly, she's done an incredible amount of work and to get to this point. So hopefully we're at a point now where we can move forward as a city and we can see the respective parties move forward with their projects, and it'll be hopefully a good thing for the city. And that's all I got to say about that. But Other things I have is that we will be convening the Board of Appeals on Monday, November 23rd, to hear a case for a conditional use at 300 Market Street. And the Planning Commission is scheduled to meet on November 30th to review a site plan for the Stack and Store at 1748 Pulaski Highway. This is the recently annexed parcels where Stack and Store desires to expand their facility onto those properties. That evening, we will also be hearing a case concerning 920 Erie Street for a substitution of a non-conforming use. And also, just want to let you know that the planning department continues to be very busy, and along with the site plan that came before you tonight, I'm certainly working on other chapters of the code that we look to update as well. And lastly, I just want to let you know that we continue to see a lot of activity in the planning department as far as permits go. It's been very busy in October, which is a good thing, and we continue to see new housing starts, lots of activity in Bully Rock and elsewhere in the city, and particularly infill activity downtown. I think it's important to note that there's been a lot of interest in the infill lots that we have downtown, which is great news. That's really smart growth at its finest, to use that existing infrastructure and those existing lots in the city and promote that growth within the city where we have necessary facilities to handle that growth. And there's a fair amount of infill lots downtown, so we hope to see those continue to be built out. And that's really all I have this evening. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Grimm, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you, sir. I'd like to call forward Ms. Erica Quisenberry Sturgill, the Director of Economic Development. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. So I prepared for you this evening just to go over some of the monies that were received in Havre de Grace relevant to the federal and the state programs that were done for COVID-19 and the pandemic itself. There's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of different names for the funds that went out, there's a lot of confusion about them, so I wanted to give you kind of an accounting, if you will, of those funds. So the first one is the federal funding, which is the PPP, or Payroll Protection Plan. And I have the ones that were recipients under $150,000. We had 181 businesses in Havre de Grace who received this money under $150,000, which equated to over $6.25 million. That would be just an average of about $35,000 per applicant at 181 recipients. However, the smallest of these PPP awards for a Havre de Grace business was $1,000. The largest was for $146,600. So you can see they kind of ran the gamut there for the 181 recipients. There were 24 businesses that received PPP funding over $150,000 in Havre de Grace, the smallest amount being $250,000, the largest just shy of $5 million, for a total of $16,300,000 in round numbers for Havre de Grace businesses alone. The breakdown of types of businesses receiving these funds was 1 construction business, 2 in transportation, 2 nonprofits, 3 in corporate and professional services, 3 in medical, and 3 in manufacturing. There are also a total of 5 in technology and/or Department of Defense sector operations. And then for state funding, these are the Maryland Department of Commerce Small Business Cares Emergency Relief Grants. On the grant side of the coin, we had 48 businesses from Havre de Grace seek and receive funding in the form of a grant before that funding ran out. An additional 4 Havre de Grace businesses received Maryland Small Business Cares emergency loans through the Maryland Department of Commerce that equated to an additional $250,000. The 48 businesses that received funding up to October 16th, 2020 from Maryland, prior to the newest round of funding be announced, that will be distributed to those businesses who applied and qualified but missed the deadline of when they ran out of funding, each received $10,000. So these businesses equate by sector to 1 in defense and technology, 2 manufacturers, 2 transportation-related businesses, 3 gyms and fitness facilities, 4 construction trades and services, 6 nonprofit organizations, 7 restaurants or hospitality businesses, 8 retail shops, 8 service-related businesses, and 8 medical businesses. So if you take both the federal and the state funds released relative to the economic response to the pandemic businesses just in Havre de Grace,
we received over $23.25 million up to the end of October. The second wave of Maryland stimulus and relief funding has been announced to offset those businesses who are outside of those funding limits in the first round and clear all of the pending applications. We do have a $20 million earmark for Main Street Maryland communities, of which there are 33 in the state, 8 in Baltimore City. And Havre de Grace, Mr. Mayor, is of course a designated Maryland Main Street community, so we will continue to monitor progress on the monies coming into the Main Street program for dissemination out to the businesses within Main Street designated districts.
Excellent. Any questions for Ms. Quisenberry? Thank you so much for that detailed report. We appreciate it. Thank you. I'd like to call forward Mr. George Dehorty, the city's Director of Finance. Good evening, Mr. Dehorty.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. First of all, thank you for the plaudits that the department has received tonight, although I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize that 99% of them were due to the people that work with me in finance, and I'll take 1% for hanging on. The current condition of the general, I should also say too that the audit firm Zellenkowski Axelrod has done are very, very professional, and they're very efficient at what they do. And that's not just applauded. I can tell you that this year's audit fees are still only at about 85% of what they were for the contract prior to Zellenkowski coming on board. And this is now the 4th year of the audit. So it's paying for itself. And we can get them all the information we want. They got to know what to do with it and how to do it quickly. And they do an excellent job. And I just want to make sure that that does not go unmentioned. Now for the current financial condition, the general fund is sitting at about $7.65 million. The same contributors that have been causing it all along. The salaries and benefits are running below budget due to, we'll call it deliberate action on vacancies. The real property tax billings are running about $150,000 ahead of schedule over the constant yield. And the highway user fees, as I mentioned last time, are expected to be about $63,000 low. But overall, the fund is doing very well, slightly better than what we anticipated at the time, and things are looking good so far. The Fund 9, the fund balance is at $920,000. It has increased $615,000 for the year. Of that, we had an operating profit of $780,000. We've collected another $765,000 in connection fees, and we have spent on capital projects and debt service $930,000, which adds up to the $615,000 increase. And the Marina Fund is sitting at almost $790,000, excuse me. It has decreased $37,000 for the year. It is not unexpected, as I've said from time to time. Most of our revenues will be coming out over this second quarter here. And as a comparison, last year the fund had decreased $54,000 by this point in time. So again, most of that can be attributed to really watching the spending. We have been, at the mayor's direction, we have been really just spending on what's absolutely necessary because, as the auditor said, there is this large unknown out there, and it really, we believe we will feel the impact much more in fiscal year 22 than in 21. I think most people are realizing that because a lot of our fiscal year 21 revenues were based on activity prior to the hitting of the COVID, and consequently they haven't been impacted as much. But all the funds are running smoothly and pretty much where we expected them to be. And that's my financial report for this evening.
George, thank you very much. Councilmember Bory, do you have a question?
I have two questions. First, so receipts in regards to water and sewer, are they coming in steady, or do we have a lot of accounts that are in behind?
We have
their
more than
concern.
we usually do, but it is not as bad as we thought it would be. We are, I would say, running about $200,000 behind schedule, which on a $12 million operation is not catastrophic, and it seems to be holding steady. So the folks that are having the difficulty due to the virus is, I believe, an isolated group, and we have, if you don't know, we have done an outreach to them to try to have them come contact City Hall. We are certainly going to work out plans to keep them from getting into any trouble. We have no interest in turning people off if we can avoid it. And again, for the citizens, I urge you, reach out to us. We don't bite, so and we can help you. We can't help you if you don't come talk to us.
We can
And your
answer
second
my question. Thank you very much. So strongly encouraging everybody, before you get in too deep, to come talk to us, and we'll help you identify a path forward.
Absolutely. There's, without question, we are here to try to help everybody,
Right.
you know, have as good a quality of life. We don't do all the investments in the infrastructure so that people cannot enjoy living in Havre de Grace. We stand behind that decision 100%.
And congratulations. I think part of the reason why we have such a great audit every year and why they haven't increased the fees is because you guys make it a joy to work with them.
Well, thank you so much.
Good
I
job.
appreciate that, and I will forward that to the staff, who again are 99% of it.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Dehorty? Councilman Robertson.
I just want to stroke your ego a little more as well, you know. So thank you, and Tracy and Jennifer and all the wonderful people that work in finance. Mr. Mayor, I mean, you've seen it tonight between the attorney and, you know, Mr. Grimm, and of course the Director of Administration and Chief of Staff back there sorting everything out. And, our own Director of Finance, we really could not have asked for much better staff. And of course, Director of Economic Development and the guy sitting in the hall right now, Mr. Whitty. So yeah, I'm really blessed to be on council at this time in the city's history, to have a staff that makes our jobs and our decision-making that much easier and really leverages their knowledge base as the biggest asset for this community. So thank you.
I appreciate it, and I'll carry it back to my
Here.
peers. And if you see a budget amendment for a Director's Benevolence Fund, don't worry about it.
Thank you, Mr. Dehorty. Appreciate it. Thank you. We're going to go to Mr. Tim Whitty, Director of Public Works. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just go over a couple things. Start with the status of the capital projects, the water line projects at Wilson, from from Bloomsbury to Seneca, as well as the Green Street from North Adams to St. John Street. Survey's been completed and they're under design, and I should see engineering plans probably the second or third week of this month. The National Guard pump station's under design. Survey has been completed, under design, and should be seeing 50% drawings by the end of November. Old Bay Lane, they're completing the survey this week. The alignment's been approved by the National Guard, and they'll be moving into design later this month. Sewer projects, Commerce Street was actually CCTV'd. We're meeting, should have a study prepared by RK&K looking at the two concepts, either from a cost analysis and ease of construction, as to whether to design, excavate, and replace the pipe through excavation, or try to line it. And that should be they hopefully have it to me by the end of next week. Francis Street, unfortunately, the CCTV camera got trapped in the pipe. There's a broken pipe, so we had to pull that back out, and we're going to go back in from 155 and camera up that way, but we need to get a state permit because we have to put up a traffic control and get that approved. That number, so they're working that out next week. I'm hoping to have the TV scan completed by next week, and then we can move on again towards concepts and design, either to line it. That looks more like probably excavation. The pipe in there is really bad shape. I don't think it's going to be able to be lined. So those are the projects we're on. Capital project, Girard Street, I have the survey completed. I'm going to go ahead and take care of the design. As you know, there's flooding back there. I was going to look at just putting inlets, but might as well take advantage of trying to get some MS4 credits and probably put in some sort of gravel trench for water quality and get a few credits there for the impervious area while I'm at it. We're looking at using the CBGD money, but I may actually have Jeff look at the design, have just Jeff construct it, and then just buy the materials with that money. We'll have to see when I get finished with the design and whether or not his folks can do that. Road paving, I'm meeting with Baltimore Gas Electric Company this Friday to go over the plan for resurfacing the roads. As we know, we're partnershiping with them. They're going to do half, we're going to do half. Probably some of the roads I know we talked about, Mayor, we're probably not going to do because our side's pretty good. We might just leave it and apply that money elsewhere. But I'm meeting with them on Friday. I don't think we're going to get all the paving done before Christmas and the plant shut down. But they just fell a little bit behind on the projects, and things happen, and we'll probably carry that and finish it up in the spring. Maritime Museum, or the Marina, again, the Marina, we actually released the contract to replace the tanks, lines, and dispensers. Met with the engineer today, took notes, went over things. He sketched it up. He's going to get some plans to us by the end of November to start that process and permitting to get the tanks replaced. We're also going to do the dock while we're at it. It's in pretty bad shape, so since we're putting up all that new stuff, we might as well get the dock fixed. Aberdeen Water Line, we addressed the comments, addressed the SH comments, sent those out, haven't gotten a response back from SHA. I did have some questions that they raised before we send the plans in. There's also part of, I know maybe Steve talked to you, Mayor, about the fact that there's we're going to use the vault, that's the county vault that supplies water to Rock Glen, and it was built by the City of Aberdeen and just turned over to the county. I sent the plans and a request to the county to meet to discuss about turning that back over to the City of Havre de Grace. We'd rebuild the vault and then just connect the line into our line when we get it down there. We did submit our annual report. Stephanie worked real hard on that and got that annual report in this past Friday. Chapel Road, I did release a contract to Gettner. As I told you at the last meeting, a couple things I need to do before I fix the bridge is relocate the gas line and the water line. And Gettner's going to go ahead and take care of the water line, and I'm still waiting for the design from the gas company. Lewis Street, survey is complete. It's another project. I'm going to redo the storm drain system and the road alignment and contract it out. And Burns property, we are actually in the process of painting the main building and the shed. And we're also going to replace repair all three porches. The front porch is kind of detached from the house, so we're going to reattach, whatever, structurally shore that porch up and then redo the flooring. And then the two other porches on the side are in pretty bad shape structurally. And so we're going to have to do a pretty major rehab job on them to get them into shape. Not only are we going to paint, obviously pressure wash, paint, but we're also going to get it so they can actually open and close the windows. So working all that for them, so in the spring they don't have to sweat it out. And finally, North Park, that project's complete. Last thing I have to do is we have a subcontractor come out and finish out, trimming out the front of the vegetation along the shoreline in front of the lock house. And that job will be done and ready to go. You can see the grass is coming in real nice on it. It looks actually pretty cool. That's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
Council, any questions for Mr. Whitty? Mr. Whitty, thank you very much for that detailed report.
No problem.
Appreciate all your efforts and everything you're doing. Thank you. I'd like to call forward Chief Walter. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This might be a little bit late, but I'm going to mention it anyhow because we do have some people that are watching the council meeting. If anybody, I want to talk about some scams. If anybody receives a call from, let's say, the Board of Election, either from Harford County or Maryland Board of Election, requesting your Social Security number, please do not give them your Social Security number. None of the Board of Elections will call and ask you specifically for your Social Security number. If they have a question and it does involve your signature or your Social Security number, they might ask you what the last four digits are, but they will not ask you for your entire number. So please do not give that to them. It's people that are trying to scam you, trying to get as much personal information from you as you possibly can. So don't do that. The other thing that is has been going around for quite some time, or for a little period of time, but we're starting to see it more and more in this area, is people sending you an email or asking you to buy the gift cards because they need it for a friend or to help somebody out, and the email actually looks like a legitimate email from a friend or a relative, that type of thing. But unless you actually look at the email, then you'll see that in most instances it is not. So make sure that you call that person who is asking you to purchase gift cards for them, because they'll say, if you purchase the gift card, I'll pay you back, that type of thing. Contact them personally. Do not, if you don't recognize the email, and again, it's going to look like it's a legitimate email from somebody, but look at the entire email just to see, you know, if you believe that it is truly from them. But nonetheless, give them a call and verify what they're asking you. So I just want you to be aware of that. The other thing I want folks to be aware of, throughout Harford County for several months now, there's been some issues, or there have been a lot of different cases of people stealing things off of vehicles, either catalytic converters or other parts of vehicles, that type of thing. So please, please pay attention to where you park your car. If you can park it in a well-lit area, in a garage or carport, anything like that, that's best. But we do want you to be aware that those instances, there are instances of items being stolen not only out of vehicles, but also off of vehicles. So again, please pay attention, be alert. If you see anything suspicious, you hear anything suspicious in the middle of the night or whatever, even if you're at a store or whatever, and you see somebody crawling underneath someone's car, go ahead and call us. You know, you can remain anonymous if you want, but call us, because that's probably not the norm, and we don't want to see anybody lose any parts of their vehicle. So, and that will be it, sir.
Chief, thank you very much. Any questions for the Chief of Police? Chief, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, folks.
Okay, we're going to go to item 16, business from the mayor's office. Okay, so I have a couple important announcements to make. So here we go. Some are happy, some not too happy. So I'm going to blend them in here. COVID-19. So in the month of October, Harford County had almost 700 new cases of COVID. And just over this weekend, since November 1st, we've had another, 50 new cases, or almost 70 new cases, just in the last 2 days in Harford County. And in Havre de Grace, we've had 39 cases in October, and in the last 2 days, November 1st and 2nd, we've had 6 new cases. So I think locally we're starting to see a trend that some other parts of the country are already experiencing with COVID-19. Some people call it a second wave. Some people say the wave's already been here. It's just coming back a little bit. Well, regardless, you know, it's definitely, definitely something to be, very conscious about and to think about as we go out in public still. The three important things: social distance, wash your hand, wear a mask when you're very close to other people. I understand people are very tired of COVID. I understand we've had this in our lives for a very long time. So I don't want to belabor a point, but just, please be careful, because there's people alive right now that if they catch this virus, they could treat them very badly. So just do the best you can to protect your friends, your neighbors, and the people you love. But with the increase of COVID, the city of Havre de Grace has always tried the best we could since the outbreak of COVID-19. The city of Havre de Grace has always tried not to put people intentionally in harm's way. And there's a fine line between, taking people's liberties away and then, putting the responsibility on people to make the best decisions. I mean, we didn't shut down the promenade or the parks, but we did ask people, to please be careful. At one point in time, we made the promenade one direction. We did close the playground, but that's, why children are children. Sometimes they need a little help. And we've opened things up gradually because the governor's opened up things gradually. Restaurants are now at 75%. If you watched the Ravens game yesterday, the crowd didn't do them any good. So, so slowly and surely, it seems like things are opening, but at the same time, it seems like things are getting right back to where they were. So that brings me, so again, the city, we didn't have any First Fridays this year. Infamously, the 4th of July was the celebration we have, did not take place, or the fireworks. We canceled the Oktoberfest. A lot of events in the city have been canceled. The Opera House has been mostly closed down throughout the pandemic. But back in September, we looked to see what events we could have with the city. And given back in September, given the metrics and the numbers we had and the state guidelines and the guidelines from the CDC, we believed we could still have the Oyster Festival. And the Oyster Festival benefits the nonprofits. And we had a lot of calls from the nonprofits asking us if the city was still having the Oyster Festival. And the Oyster Festival is always the weekend before Thanksgiving, the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So examining how we could put limited numbers of people in the community center, and if we had 2 large tents on the parking lot, how we could spread people out. Consulting with the buffet, or I'm sorry, the caterer, how they serve the food, we realized we could do the Oyster Festival and still be in compliance with all the CDC guidelines in the state health department. We even submitted a plan to the Harford County Health Department, and it got approved for the Oyster Festival. But that was September. And, numbers are increasing with COVID-19, and I've been following carefully the ticket sales for the Oyster Festival. And normally less than 3 weeks out, we've already sold a couple hundred tickets, and now we're around 20 to 24 tickets only sold. I do know that some nonprofits have discussed with me some concerns of contracting COVID in the event. And again, as I said, it's never been the city's intention to ever put people in harm's way, or to promote an event that could be, extra risky for people's health. So we've thought about it, and the numbers are pretty strong every day. The state of Maryland is contracting close to 900 to 1,000 new cases a day. And 19 days from now, when we do have the Oyster Festival, it could be more than that. And Havre, Grace, and Harford County could be increasing their numbers. So with that said, and with only about 24 tickets sold for the Oyster Festival, the city of Havre, Grace is going to cancel the Oyster Festival this year to maintain the safety for the citizens. And again, sorry to all the nonprofits out there that look forward to it every year, but we kind of got the idea with the slow ticket sales and the caution that we've heard from a lot of groups that have talked to us. We think is in the best interest to keep the public safety, keep the public safe. And so the Oyster Fest will be canceled. The 24 tickets that have been sold, the money will be refunded. So again, just want everybody to know that we tried. We try everything we can to analyze each event on its own merit. That's why we only canceled, First Fridays one at a time instead of canceling the whole time, because we kept thinking, well, maybe next month we could have a First Friday. Maybe we could have, but I want everyone to know that we weren't giving up on anything. We weren't taking the easy way out. We just realized that, numbers are increasing. The potential to harm somebody is increasing. The metrics today are not the same metrics as they were in September. In September, it was around 300 or 400 people in Maryland a day getting COVID. That's more than doubled now. And so, apologize everybody, but you know what? There's always next year, and Havre Grace is a city that has lots of events. So I can promise you, as soon as conditions allow, we will have lots of events in the city. Don't worry, I promise that. So let's talk about voting. Just want to remind everybody that voting takes place tomorrow. So if you're watching this live, this probably means something to you. If you watch it tomorrow night after 8 o'clock, it means nothing to you. But anyway, just remind everybody that if you're voting in person on Election Day, that the only place to vote in person will be the former Havre Grace High School gymnasium on Congress Avenue. The old high school gymnasium is where to vote, if you're voting on Election Day, November 3rd. So, another thing I want to talk about is trees. Havre Grace is a city of trees. Some people have been driving around lately and seen those bucket trucks along Union Avenue, and see a lot of trees go down. And I've been getting calls in my office, and I've seen a few social media posts about all the trees coming down in Havre Grace. Now listen to this: 30 trees are going to be cut down. 30 trees will be removed throughout the city in the next few weeks. We're already started. That's a lot of trees. But I want everyone to know that 20 of those trees have been identified as ash trees, and they are largely infected by the emerald ash borer, which will kill the tree and is killing the trees. These are big trees that are dying from the inside out. The city has been addressing the infestation for these trees for the last 2 to 3 years. Now, I want everyone to realize that the city has a tree commission. We just don't, hop in our car and drive around and point at trees. These trees have been identified and discussed by appointed members to the city's tree commission, and these people know what they're talking about. And they have recommended to us that these trees be, dealt with before they become a hazard to someone's home or fall on someone's car. Now, there is a treatment for ash trees. You can inject a tree with a treatment, which in some cases may or may not be successful. It could prolong the life of a tree, an ash tree, for 2 to 5 years. But the thing about the treatments is they're not guaranteed. They're kind of expensive, and it's a temporary fix, not a permanent solution for the ash trees. Ash trees with 30% dieback are very difficult to save, and the speed in which the trees are decimated is very swift. So even if we were to overlook it this year, by this, if we're like, well, maybe that tree can make it another year, it could deteriorate within months to the point where it could become a danger. We also have a number of trees that will be removed for safety concerns. We have at least 4 extremely large trees on the city right-of-way that are a threat to residents and their homes. We have 6 trees that will be removed in the North Park area of Havre de Grace around the McElhenney Park area. These trees will be removed either because they have some decay inside their trunk, or they're much larger than all the other trees and they're completely stopping the growth of other trees. I've been out to McElhenney Park, and there's lots of trees, but there are some trees that are completely robbing all the sunlight from other ones, and they happen to be in bad shape. So we're removing those trees at McElhenney Park. But I want everybody to know that we take it seriously. We have a plan to replace 60 trees throughout the city, and I just want everyone to know that we don't arbitrarily go out and just cut trees down. I mean, when I was a kid, look, I'll just tell you straight up. When I was a kid, the most horrifying book I ever read when I was in kindergarten was The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. Ever read that book? I mean, like the pictures, I was horrified. I remember Miss Shavolsky was my kindergarten teacher, and she's sitting there. We're all sitting on the floor, Indian style, or I'm sorry, crisscross applesauce. But anyway, sorry about that. Can't say that no more. Anyway, you can tell when I went to nursing. But I remember reading a book, The Lorax, about this little guy that wants to cut down all the trees. I was horrified. I went home and told my mom and dad, what would the world be like without trees? I love trees. I guarantee every council member loves trees. Everyone that works for the city loves trees. But every time we have, a tree service out and they cut trees down, we get the nasty calls from the citizens I can't believe you're cutting this tree down. I'm telling you right now, no tree gets cut down that hasn't been seriously considered to be, either alive, dying, or dead. I mean, we actually got a letter from a business wanting us to cut down a tree on Washington Street because the tree was dropping nuisance monkey balls, staining the sidewalk, and this person questioned, what good is this tree? And I said, no, we're not cutting that tree. That tree's a big, huge, healthy tree. I don't care if it drops monkey balls all day long. I mean, we don't cut down trees just because somebody doesn't like a tree and what it does to sidewalks. Trees take several generations to grow to full height. And the sad thing is when we remove a tree, it takes forever to get it back. I mean, so all these ash trees we're cutting down, it's going to take another generation until they're fully mature again. But the decision we made, this administration made, is instead of spending expensive treatments on these ash trees that may or may not work, let's rip off the Band-Aid now. Let's cut it down and quickly replant a tree. We'll replant good trees that'll be strong, that'll be survive different elements, survive salt from the roads and things like that. Trees that can survive in a city landscape. And we're also trying to pick trees with more thought to, like foliage. We're trying to get trees that have beautiful orange and yellow foliage and red foliage. So perhaps 20 years from now, people actually visit our city just because we're beautiful in the fall. So we're putting a lot of thought into tree replacement. So every tree that comes down, it's got to come down for a reason. Trees can kill people. If a tree, some of these big red oaks or white oaks fall in someone's house, it'll crush right through a house. So we are a certified tree city. We have one of the highest tree populations per capita. If you look at an aerial photograph of Havre, you see trees. So we know what we're doing. That's why we have a tree commission. So I don't want to belabor a point. We just get these people in Havre Grace make me feel like the Lorax. We're not. I hate the Lorax. The Lorax is a bad guy. So anyway, everything comes down for a reason. But on a good note, talking about trees, let's talk about Christmas trees. So holiday decorations are beginning to come up around the city. Professional companies will be decorating our downtown and our promenade area. Our Department of Public Works will be out in full force pretty soon, putting garland and wreaths up and beautiful holiday decorations around the city. So we're looking forward to lighting the city of Havre de Grace up, which should take place right before Thanksgiving. Just want to remind everybody once again that the Lafayette Farewell Tour historical marker dedication will be this Friday, November 6th at 3:30 around Legion Square. Earlier in the program, Ms. Diane Clare from the city of Havre de Grace gave the background on that. And with that said, I will, nothing too important. That's important. That's enough news for one night. So just to wrap it up, be careful of COVID. It's still dangerous. My apologies, but we need to cancel the Oyster Festival just because of the growing health concern. And, just want everybody to know that when you vote tomorrow, vote at the Havre de Grace High School, old Havre de Grace High School auditorium. And we love trees, okay? So with that said, thank you very much, everybody, for your time. I'm going to go to Councilmember Zinner.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, and citizens. I want to thank Diane Clare for her wonderful presentation regarding the Lafayette Farewell Trail. And also I want to thank the Green Team for their gift of local honey that they dropped off at some point last week, I think, to all the council members. I've had a chance to taste it, and it's very good. The other thing I wanted to mention is tonight's my 2-year anniversary of being sworn in on council. And it's been really a great privilege to be on with this group and with these legislators and the mayor. And I wanted to kind of bring up a little bit about COVID, because the differences between being on council in 2019 and being on council in 2020, I don't think anyone could have possibly imagined. But I want to acknowledge everyone in the community for their sense of community and everything that the sacrifices the whole community has made, whether it's volunteering, whether it's homeschooling, whether it's going out to work, it's working from home, dealing with Zoom during commission meetings, and just your sense of generosity to your neighbors, and also by following the CDC recommendations and taking everybody's health into concern, And I just think that the whole community as a whole should be acknowledged for the sacrifices that they've made since March. The other thing is, since March, I've been trying to focus when I make these comments on civic involvement. So the two things that I've really focused on are the census and on voting. In the year 2020, we have the opportunity to involve ourselves in both of those activities, and we will not have an opportunity like that until 2040. There'll be another census in 2030, but there won't be a national election and a census again until 2040. So I was trying to look up some statistics today. I haven't seen anything really new on the census. I think they're just still gathering their numbers. Nothing's changed in terms of our standing and things like that, except that it was very good, and we did manage to complete a lot of responses. The other thing I did want to talk about a little bit too was voting. There's a little bit over 4 million registered voters in the state of Maryland. Of that, 2.1 million have already participated in mail-in voting or early voting. Now, if you have not registered to vote, you actually still have an opportunity if you go to your polling place tomorrow and bring a government-issued ID and bank statement or bill just supporting your address where you live. You can register to vote. If you have a mail-in ballot that you, for whatever reason, did not have an opportunity to mail in, you can go to your polling place and fill out a provisional ballot, and that will allow the judges at some point to check whether you were able to get your mail-in ballot in or not, and the provisional ballot would then stand. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that, and also you have an opportunity tomorrow from 7 to 8 p.m. to take your ballot and put it in one of the drop boxes. So there's still opportunities for you to get your vote in if you have not sent back a mail-in ballot, or if you actually are not registered but would like to register to vote. So that's really all I have for this evening, and I'll turn it over to...
Thank you very much, Councilmember Zinner.
Thank you.
Councilmember Robertson, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, city staff, ladies and gentlemen here and at home. Just a couple things. First of all, there will be no Budget and Finance Committee meeting tomorrow evening, mostly due to Election Day, but perhaps we can all digest this audit and maybe reconvene next month. Also, I do want to reiterate, as Mr. Seipold had mentioned, that Veterans Day, Wednesday, November 11th at 11 o'clock in the morning, the American Legion, as well as the VFW and several other community organizations will be participating in the annual Veterans Day. I know that last year we had a Veterans Day parade, and we're hoping to do that again this year, but you know, as the mayor pointed out with the COVID concerns, we just didn't feel like we could do that safely. So we just wanted to still have something. So we're asking folks to, you know, practice socially distancing out on the lawn at the park, wear your masks if you're able to, and, you know, come out and just be respectful, and it should be a good time. The American Legion will not host lunch afterwards, so that's the biggest change this year. So again, November 11th at 11 in the morning, come out to Tidings Park next Wednesday. The day before that, November 10th, which is 1 week from tomorrow, I must say, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we'll be saying happy birthday to our Marine friends, all those devil dogs and jarheads out there, so oorah. It hurts me to say that. Oorah, it's kind of like hoa, but with a little less gusto. Anyway, also next Tuesday, November 10th at 7 p.m., the Havre de Grace Youth Commission will be hosting a virtual town hall with the focus being on civic engagement. So we're just trying to, you know, let the young folks know what goes on with their city government, how they can be involved, and just foster and perpetuate a sense of civic engagement and volunteerism in our young folks, as is the charge with the Youth Commission. So that will be live streamed on YouTube. There will be a Zoom link for the Youth Commission, or the youth in Havre de Grace, to be involved in, and we'll be getting that out. But again, next Tuesday, November 10th at 7 p.m., tune into the city's YouTube channel for the live stream of the virtual town hall for the young folks. Also, this week is National Veterans Small Business Week. It's where the SBA is showing off veterans businesses here, near and far. If you happen to know of ones in town, please visit them. But otherwise, if you go to sba.gov/NVSBW, that's National Veterans Small Business Week, abbreviated, SBA, Small Business Association.gov/NVSBW. You can find out more information for the highlighted businesses and the events that they'll be holding. Also, I do want to want everybody to give a prayer out. I have family in Vienna, Austria, and today, I think as we speak, they're still experiencing a terror attack. When I came into council tonight, at least 15 have been shot dead, and there were reports of a suicide bomber, and they're still gathering that, and the police were still trying to actively take those folks down. So, my heart goes out to the folks of Vienna, Austria, and worldwide. And, on another note, speaking of violence, this is probably one of the most contentious election years and times in America, in my lifetime at least. I know that we've experienced several shocks and shifts, and the mayor, as the history teacher and buff that he is, can attest to that. But this year in particular, with the pandemic, with the socioeconomic issues, with the racial unrest, and the the national election, as divisive as it is, I think, in this nation's 244 years, we've had a lot of hardships, and I think the way that we've gotten through them is remembering that we're largely friends and neighbors. We're supposed to be helping each other out. We're supposed to have each other's back, and I just hope that we don't lose sight of that, because far too often, I think, in our discourse, in our national psyche, folks get the terms opponents and adversaries confused. Opponent's somebody that has an opposing viewpoint, or someone with another position. But they're not your enemy. An adversary is a person that has an opposing view, but also wants to destroy you. And I think it's important that we not blur those lines between what should be healthy discourse and healthy debate, and who are the people who are actively trying to destroy us. So with that, Mr. Mayor, stay classy, Havre de Grace.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Robertson. Good evening, Councilmember Martin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, and citizens. Jason on point as always. We are friends, we're neighbors. This is a great community, and one of the things I will say is I wish the nation would follow Havre de Grace. We can have opposing views, and that's it. They're opposing views. Our friendship always remains. So, like I said, I'm proud that I live in Havre de Grace. I love the diversity. I love the fact that we can express opposing opinions and still remain friends, and that's very important in today. Mr. Mayor, you talk about trees. We do have a tree ceremony coming up shortly, and it will be the 4th of July Commission's Holiday Jubilee trees. So you'll be able to see that in December. So we are talking about trees, and there are going to be some trees to look at. So that is coming. So far, we have not had to cancel the first Holly Jolly Christmas, and hopefully that will still be able to take place. But again, safety first, and that's important as well. The Water and Sewer Commission will have a virtual meeting Friday, November 13th. It will be posted on the city website, and it will be emailed to all the commission members so that we can get back on track, but it will be a virtual meeting. We will not be coming into City Hall. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'm through my comments tonight.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councilmember Martin. Appreciate them. And we're going to go to Councilmember Ringsacker.
Do I get to talk again?
Yep.
Wow. I know, right? Yeah. I'd like to add a Seventh Amendment. No. Mr. Mayor, Council, everybody at home, hi to my wife who's watching. I don't think anybody else is watching after all that stuff with the single concept plan, but I do thank the council for passing that, and hopefully we can get this moving and just, put it behind us. For the tree commission, I will be recycling all this paperwork that I have after I give the amendments to the attorney, but I thank you. Halloween was fun. It was good seeing the kids have some sort of normalcy. I saw a lot of people out there with, chutes to put their candy out to the kids' baskets, or they'd leave the candy on on tables, all prepackaged and everything. I live on a little cul-de-sac, so we would oscillate between having a ton of kids to no kids at all for a long stretch. So it was pretty cool, though, to see the kids have some sort of normalcy, because it's tough, with the homeschooling and, going back to this, abbreviated plan that the school system has that they have to adapt to. For the Marina Commission, we've been contacted by the Economic Development Advisory Board. They'd like to meet with the Marina Commission about some ideas. So I was hoping to actually have the meeting next Wednesday, but I didn't realize that's Veterans Day. Yeah, next Wednesday. So I will probably be moving that to the 18th, which is the third Wednesday, which means I'll be moving the Wage and Benefits Commission. Wednesdays are good for me. So beyond that, I was over at the mayor's house for the football game. I do confirm that he had the Lorax on his end table that he likes to read all the time. But Mr. Mayor, I am also a tree guy. You know that. So thank you, everybody, and I apologize for taking up so much time earlier this evening.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ringsacker. Councilmember Boyer.
Mayor, thank you. Colleagues, everybody who's still hanging in there. I want to thank Diane Claire for the wonderful presentation, and I do want to have a copy of that if that's possible, because I think she had a lot of great information in there. That would just be good to know. I also want to thank and this is one heck of a word, Zenikovsky, Axelrod, for coming again this year. What a great organization. They're very kind and they answer lots of questions that we ask. But it also goes to show how, just as like Jason had said earlier, how wonderful of a group of people that you have working for you in your city who really care about their jobs, about the excellence in their jobs, and they make it so that the audit goes smoothly, which says a lot about an organization. It says a lot about how its leadership, and it sounds the pride and ownership of one's job. So again, I just really want to emphasize that we're really lucky to have the people who work for our city, because they truly do care about our community. I want to say kudos to the mayor on everything that he said in regards to the trees. I serve on the tree commission. We've been saying for a while to the city that we have a real concern in regards to the ash. We have been told by the state of Maryland, we've had experts from the state of Maryland come to look at all of the ash trees, and they confirmed that they were all diseased. The amount of money in order to, basically inoculate the tree in hopes that it doesn't get the borer, and the probability of it working it's a lot of money for a very little amount of success. So the tree commission encouraged the mayor to really just bite the bullet and just take them all down so that we can get something else planted as soon as possible. With that said, the city's not the only person that, or the only organization that can plant trees. You can plant trees as well, and you're highly encouraged to plant trees that are indigenous to this area. And if you have any questions, to please call into City Hall. We have people on hand. Joe, what's Joe's last name? Joe Conway, who's the expert on trees within this city, who can help push you to the right types of trees. It's not just about picking an indigenous tree, but also picking a tree that's right for the location that you're planting it, whether it be a really tall tree, a medium-sized tree, or quite frankly, just sometimes just a large bush might fit what you need. But the city is not the only entity within the city that can plant the trees. And if it's something that you value about this city, which I personally value, being able to drive down our tree-lined streets and just the atmosphere that it provides, I highly encourage you to consider it and think about how you can make this really small investment for something that really pays off in the future for your property. The third thing, I want to thank the downtown businesses and everybody throughout the city who was extremely creative in the approach for Halloween. You made it special for everyone, and it was something that even the adults looked forward to, because everybody likes going down to see the costume parade and see how all the kids get so creative on what they wear. You know, we have the princesses, the zombies, the kitty cats. My next door neighbor was Luke Skywalker, and he was absolutely adorable. But this year, as the kids were running around, I heard this one kid say, "Hey, Dad, you know, I think this is the best Halloween ever because everybody's so creative on how they're giving out the candy." So for us adults, let's take this as an aha moment and think we could really maybe this is a good thing that happened, that we had COVID, and now we can think of ways to make it just a little bit more special for the kids in our neighborhood, to let them know how we think they're special, and we want to make sure that they remember their childhood. And finally, I just want to, again, jump off of what Jason said. We are all neighbors here. We all love each other. And it doesn't matter what happens tomorrow evening, or even if it goes on beyond that. What happens in Havre de Grace is special, and it's something that we need to protect. And as long as we all value it, and we're all ready to fight for it and protect it, then everything is going to be okay. We got to trust each other. We got to love each other. And we have to protect what's most important, which is our democracy. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyer. Council President, good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. Thanks again to Jimmy and April for your concerted efforts on the single concept plan. Keep in mind, the concept of tonight was to make sure the conditions of AR 277 were met, and we did that. The path going forward, the details will be in the site plan, and so there's still a lot of work left to do. I want to personally thank all the local businesses who participated in trick-or-treating this year, and to the Havre Grace Visitor Center for hosting the costume contest. Despite COVID, you made Halloween a special annual tradition for our youth, and that's a huge plus for this community. On October 28th of last week, it was set aside as a National First Responders Day to honor the men and women who act quickly when an emergency is at hand. First responders dedicate their lives to save lives. These are the unsung heroes who run towards the crisis while the rest of us flee the crisis. They are the police officers, the firefighters, the EMTs, the paramedics that are always first on the scene. These are those dedicated professionals that always answer the call, often putting their own lives on the line or at risk. Special thanks to the Havre Grace Police Department, the Susquehanna Hose Company, and the Havre Grace Ambulance Corps for all you do. Your tireless dedication and selfless service serve as an inspiration for all of us. And to piggyback what my council members said tonight, be kind and respect one another. Havre Grace strong. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Council President. Okay, we're going to go to item 18, comments from citizens. Is there any citizen in the audience that wishes to address the council this evening? You good, Rich? Okay, all right. All right.
You're still there.
Thank you, Rich.
Does
Thanks for
Councilmember
being here.
Martin's mustache want to say anything?
So with that said, we're going to go to item number 19, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Council President, seconded by Councilmember Ringsacker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to adjourn carries 6-0 in the affirmative. The time is now 9:54. Thank you very much. That concludes the November 2nd, 2020 council meeting. Thank you very much, everybody, and please be safe.